Well, we've been following the progress of some of the builds in the shop, and this is what your atypical big block Cobra will look like when it's all finished. Some of the features I'd like to point out on this are things like the standard hood scoop that they have on this car to draw the cool air into the superheated engine bay of these things through the turkey pan, typically around the carburetors. The quick lifts on the front of the car, or the quick jacks for getting the thing up quickly for a tire change during racing. Your standard side pipes in a flat black color, so it's good for radiating the heat and that type of thing. So this is your atypical, if you like, 427 Cobra that you'd see going down the street. You've been following along with the progress on the build that we've been working on, and we can take a look at what something like this would look like when you really are bringing the project to the next level. I did want to take a second to point out one of the major features of this car. You've seen what it looks like compared to a standard one, where we'd normally have like a flat black side pipe. This car is getting a full chromed exhaust system, chromed roll bar, some of the flashy stuff on the outside to set it apart. What really sets it apart is this thing here, this huge bubble hood to clear the twin Paxton superchargers. We got this fiberglass hood from Mr. Bruce down in Pennsylvania, and this is a real good fit over the superchargers, just clearing everywhere we want it to be. We'll show you some of the features that we've been working around of fitting all of that stuff under the hood of the car. But yeah, this is a good shape and a good fit on this car in fiberglass. Since we're hand making the whole car out of aluminum or aluminium, because this was actually made in England, of course, we are utilizing a aluminium hood on this car, and so to give us a pretty good jump start on all the metal shaping that this would entail, because I'd looked pretty carefully at this shape for a while and trying to figure out how we were going to make it out of aluminum, and it's almost like a hood that's been worked around the edges over a hood. The Kirkhams over in Utah were very kind to go ahead of us on this trail, and they've made the tooling to stretch form this hood skin to shape. And so we've got the stretch formed hood skin, which is 3/4 of the hood missing the front edge of it, because you can only get so much out of a stretched piece of aluminum before it just decides to yield and says, I'm not going any further. So we have this aluminum hood skin we're going to be fitting up to the hood frame, the standard hood frame on the car, and all the flashing and the body panels. We'll look at some of those details as we go through the process. And this piece here will be trimmed back around the line, and we will give a little shape and put through the wheel a strip of aluminum to make the front of this hood, so we've got a complete skin ready to fit onto this Super Snake project. Okay, this is a pretty exciting time for this project. The chassis that we've put together here, all to 60s blueprints, and fortunately to some of the 60s original cars that we've had access to reference some of the hard to find, hard to measure dimensions and some of the details of the frames of this car. This has been blasted and painted by our buddy Eli English, and it's looking pretty good now in the paint that we specified. It's a satin black. It's an equipment or a machinery paint, so it's very hard wearing, and it's good and hard for chassis applications like this. So we're pretty excited to see the chassis back, and you can see, looking at it, we're starting to put some of the parts on the car. It's a really exciting time for the project. We had to do a couple of modifications specially for this, because we're turning it into a Super Snake. We had to lower the radiator slightly and move it ahead slightly, because there's an awful lot of stuff to fit here under the hood of this car, and now we're putting even more on top of that. we've done a couple of little modifications to the pusher fan brackets because the fan and motor arrangement has basically been reversed on the pusher fans for the front of the nose opening on this car. We've had to add an oil cooler bracket in a different place to what they normally are. So there's a lot of subtle little details that have been done very much to the original specs of the one single car that we're trying to copy exactly. As you look at the chassis here, you'll see we've got things like the foot boxes in place. This foot box has now been had a stamped tag installed on it. This matching number has been put on the shock tower, so we've got the correct style tag with the right locations and all that sort of silly little details that we really get off on. You'll see on the foot boxes we've wrapped them with a heat insulation and reflective material because of all the massive amount of heat from the headers on this car. We've taken the opportunity on this to wrap the heat insulation right around the outsides as well, so that it's shielding it from the hot pipes as well as from the high temperature of the headers. Other things that are starting to go on this car at this time, you can see we've started putting stainless plumbing on there. So we've got a full stainless line and bracketry and all that stuff, with fittings going right out to the flex lines at this point for the brakes. We've got master cylinders installed now just on the brakes because there is no clutch in this car. We're building it as an automatic. The master cylinders are modern master cylinders in the same style as the originals, and we've made them look like a cast aluminum or a vintage look on these things. You'll see we use details like that in other places as well, like the calipers on the car. So you've got a modern, high performance piece of the system on the car that's now been made to look old and vintage when you're looking at the car on display or driving by you at 150 miles an hour. Okay, a couple of the close-ups of the details we were just talking about. We've got things like these master cylinders, the remote reservoir master cylinders in the original style that all fit up nicely to the original style plumbing. This has been upgraded to stainless, and then these have been taken from their black e-coat finish that we got them in to a vintage aluminum looking finish. So they look like the Girlings that the car would have come with originally. You'll notice subtle little things like the clutch master cylinder. We've custom made a little blank off plate for it, and we've just bolted that on there to cover up where the clutch would have been on most of the standard cars that were made out of these. We're trying to keep exact original things like the pedal box design, and then what would they have done back at Shelby in the day? Now, they wouldn't have made a special pedal box. They would have just taken the standard pedal box for these things, and they would have covered that hole up and run them without a clutch master cylinder. Alright, we're looking at the back end of the cockpit here now as we're starting to assemble this fabulous looking chassis. You can see we have in place here the differential oil cooler. We've done all the standard correct differential mounts for this car, even though we've done something special for the differential, which we'll show you shortly. You can see more of our brake line plumbing through the car. The junction at the back here with the brake light switch screwed into it, and all in place, ready to go right out to the flex lines. All of the details of the suspension, bushings already installed, ready to go, and installing more of our interior panels. Things like this rear bulkhead here have all been pre-fitted, clear-coat in place. We have the detail of the FIA bump now installed, 9 rivets top and bottom, 2 rivets each end. Cruel but true nickname for guys like me, we're rivet counters. And then again, we're going to some time and trouble with getting this body ready to fit up and make sure all the gaps are sealed up with things like the weather stripping across the back. Just another look at the other side of the pedal box, at the business side of the office, if you like. You can see here we've made a pedal box cover plate with only one pedal cut out in it, and that is wrapping around one of the two pedals from the pedal box there. We're using, David would be pleased, we're using a Kirkham pedal pad for mocking it up. That'll be replaced with the correct font AC pedal pad when we put this together for the last time. And then you can see with this massive expanse of footroom that you have in here, with having only two of the three pedals, we're going to put in the side here a dead pedal so that you can brace yourself up against the car for cornering or massive acceleration and that kind of thing that this car will be capable of. Okay, we told you this was something special. What you're looking at here is the heartbeat and the power plant of this motor. This was screwed together by Performance Unlimited for us, and they've done a heck of a job putting this motor together, and they sent some cookies up from Florida for the shop dog with the motor. The motor, you funny dog. The motor is basically a stock FE 427 motor that's been stroked and bored out to a bigger displacement, and the brackets for these superchargers have all been developed per the original ones, and you'll have seen that in a previous episode, and how we come up with the design of something like that, and how we are taking photographs, drawings, anything we can from history, and turning it into something real we can actually use today. So I'm pretty excited with the way these brackets have all turned out for the superchargers for both sides, the tensioner, the old school spring-loaded tensioner for the drive belt on this thing. We've done a little deviation from original on this, because the original was driven on the superchargers by a single V-belt, and that was inclined to, because these superchargers take somewhere around like 60 to 65 horsepower a piece to drive these things, and driving them through a single V-belt under load, they were of course prone to some slippage. And so we've taken a little liberty here where we've added a serpentine belt to give us some more surface area, because we don't want any slippage going on with these things. When you're running this low on power, you need to make sure you've got it all available. What we're looking at here is the seats of the car, and I love bending tube. I especially love it when I can make nice parts like this, and this is the pretty much completed frame of a 427 style seat. We make all the pieces of tube up with the bending machinery. There's about 4 different types of benders we use to make this sort of a frame up in pieces, and then we put it all together. We build a fixture, we put the seats together to dimensions, and we'll reverse engineer the seat to build a fixture out of it so that we can repeat it, and we can make our patterns work for further seats, and we can make them consistent, and they're all very exact to fit into the car and make absolute optimum use of the minimal amount of space in these small cars. We're lucky enough from time to time, as I've mentioned previously, to get original parts in here, and that's really fun for us because we can take details like these early 289 seats, and we can very much reverse engineer them, and we can copy them to be able to replicate them and build modern replicas of these type of things. You can see here that these seats are made in a very similar method, the Supercharger method, to the bodywork. So you've seen what a finished frame looks like. We put the frame up on the table. We will get out one of our favorite tools, which is poster board. We'll translate that over to a pattern for the sheet metal, and the sheet metal gets turned into a program for the CNC plasma cutter. We burn out things like this part here, and this then gets wrapped around the frame of the seat, very much the same way that the body of the car gets wrapped around the chassis of it. This is the Supercharger construction method. It's an age-old Italian technique of hand-making cars around the birdcage or the framework of them. So yeah, we're working on a neat pair of red leather 289 seats at the moment, which is what this will become, and we're also building the 427 style seats with the measurements, tooling, fixturing, all as it would have been done back in the day, all to very exact dimensions, hand fitted to the car. Something that drives me crazy about a lot of the modern seats you get is they overstuff them. When you look at this method of building seats, you've got something that's very light, it's very rigid, so it's nice and stiff in the car so you can get a good seating position and hold that position and be held in. It's very comfortable because it's very much been shaped around you, and yet with this construction method of this light aluminum sheet over the lightweight tubular framework, you've got all the strength and rigidity you need, you've got the comfort you need because it's been built around you to shape and fit, and then it is very minimal upholstery over all this so that it keeps you down low and far back and fits inside these tiny little cars. So this combination of techniques to build something like a seat absolutely delights me because the end result is something that's very functional, very traditional, very accurate, and there it is. We'll show you these how they turn out from when they've been through the trimmer. We have a great trimmer guy that does a fabulous upholstery job for us, and we'll show you the results of these things when they're all finished. All right, we're pretty excited to capture some of the progress here on the Super Snake project. At this point, we're really excited because we've had this body and this frame together and aligned to each other and matched up and tacked and welded and then refitted and adjusted on the body lines. These have been together and apart so many times at this point we're starting to lose count on it. The body and frame have fit together so nicely the last couple of times we've put them together. It's time to align them up, which we've done at the bottoms of the doors, and we've done the join there, and then we've pulled all of this framework down against the tube frame underneath it, and at this point we've rolled all of these aluminum edges on the panels around the tube frame, and we are ready to start riveting the aluminum to the tube frame. We've protected the tube frame by using a heavy-duty industrial paint on it, and then where the sheet metal gets wrapped around it, we have put a vinyl tape behind it to protect it. We've used a vinyl tape to separate the two layers and protect it. We've used a vinyl tape because it's waterproof and it's never going to absorb moisture or break down and start to collect road dirt and moisture into it like they would do back in the old days with something like the masking tape. So you can see this part and this part have been wrapped right around the tube frame, and then the tube frame goes here on the corners, so it's not supported there by any tube. And what we've done with that is we've rolled that underneath the same, so you can see looking across at that corner, it looks the same where it's rolled around the tube as it does where it goes around the corner without a tube. So we've done the nice little radius on the sheet metal, and we've got it really looking good where we want it. You'll also spot from the angle you're looking at it from as we've started laying in the wiring harness for the car, and we've started running the wires and getting them all in place on the car. All right, we're just showing you the underneath of the body where it's wrapped around the tube, so you can see the other side of where we were just looking at it. You can see that the body is wrapped right around this tube. It's been trimmed very carefully to the exact length we're looking for, and then it's been hand hammered little by little all the way around the whole thing. You can see where it rolls underneath the tube there, rolls underneath the tube here, and then where we've rolled the edge underneath where the tubes are not supporting it. So we're pretty excited to see the body locked down to the frame, finally ready for rivets.